Wee woo, wee woo. Hello, everyone. This is Officer Grant with a quick show update from downtown at the station. We're going on what's called paid leave for the next 2 weeks and just wanted to give everyone a quick heads up. So in lieu of a normal episode, this week in the feed you'll be hearing one of our bonus episodes, Book 22 of Fire Bros. In it, we're reviewing the movies Justice League, the Snyder Cut, Bad Trip, Ma, I think is Bad Trip a TV show? Ma, and Private Parts. No, Bad Trip is a movie. If you like what you hear and you want to support the show and help us grow, head on over to patreon.com/thoughtcops, and this and every other episode we've done is only $2 a month. And without any more ado than is need be, here it is. See you in 2 weeks. Or minus this week. So really one, except, well, we record the episode, then post it a couple days later. So it's really more like a week and a half. Welcome to Fire Bros, the only spin-off podcast where every once in a while, hopefully exceedingly more often, we talk about things that other people are talking about, and then we have a whole system of a whole system. We have a system. It's a good system in place. Yes. There's a system in place. We either burn things or we put them in a library of regress.
Crystal clear rating system, easier than 1 through 10.
It's
thumbs
better
up,
than
thumbs
Rotten
down.
Tomatoes.
Yeah, this is the way of the future. There's no room for nuance. We know. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Listen to the episode and find out.
Right.
So we got 4 topics this episode. It's Oops All Movies episode. I realized we did 4.
Oh yeah, what do you know?
4 movies, and for those of you who are watching at home, we got an excellent setup. Similar to the recent Thought Cops as of late, we are doing webcam live streams for the people who donate on Patreon and the Discord and everything like that. And we're coming to you live from Neo Westtown here in Neo, Chicago, from our dear friend Josh, a.k.a. Sleep Science's very nice new apartment.
Well, thank you. Nice to be here at my own place.
I like this. Normally, me and Grant, we're sitting in the room. We got our chairs, we got the table, the mic stand and everything. And I'm just fucking here laid up on the couch because I feel like I just ran a fucking marathon. We just watched, and we'll just start off with this. We just finished the Snyder Cut, which is Zack Snyder's official vision of the Justice League. He was the one who was supposed to direct it originally. He had to step out of the project for personal reasons. Joss Whedon finished it, and now Grant is walking away to get a bag of appropriately titled snacks. Make sure you pick that up on mic.
Snyder's pretzels. Do you get it? Because the Snyder Cut and we ate a bag of Snyder's pretzels, so I'm going to eat these while it's a good bit, right?
No, feel free to munch on that on mic, yeah. And make it as loud as possible.
Good pretzels, even better movie.
No, I'm good. Maybe I'll suck on one of those, actually, for the salt.
Yeah, no, it's good. It gets you in the mood. The cool thing about the pretzel rods is you can pretend you're smoking if you're like a child and you're not old enough to smoke.
See, look at me. I got a big pretzel stick in my mouth.
Yeah, it's funny.
Look at me.
It's good. Zwick is currently typing he's going to yell at us for eating while recording. But so, Snyder's Pretzels, Snyder Cut. We just finished watching it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a behemoth.
4 hours long.
4 hours long.
When's the sequel?
Well, I couldn't tell you, man. I'm on the end of my fucking seat waiting. Oh boy, this movie was so bad. I'm not going to beat around the bush. This felt like the dying fucking like death cry of cinema.
Yeah.
And I'm not lying. It was truly horrific. And I'm not somebody, I don't hate the MCU. It's got its issues, but at least the Marvel movies know what they're trying to be. You know,
right.
They're kind of goofy, they're kind of whatever, and yes, they're big, bloated blockbusters, but this was on an entirely different level.
I brought up while we were watching it, like during the Marvel movies, there'll be some light, funny, lighthearted moments, and it's just like they'll be fighting the bad guy, and then they'll like make a joke and then like punch the bad guy, and it's just like, okay, you know, like it's not taking itself too seriously. The characters are likable. It knows that it's a dumb comic book movie. It's serious in some parts. It's not serious in other parts. This feels just like everything, like every single scene had to have the most gravity. Oh, when I was 2 years old, I fucking shit my pants, and it's just like this fucking Hans Zimmer score of just like, and it's just like, why is nothing should take itself this seriously? We're not even at the part where they fight a bad guy yet.
Let's give a little background here to we talk about the MCU. Let's talk about the DCCU, the DC Cinematic Universe. So it has not been around as long as the MCU, and it feels very much like they're trying to play catch up. Because, you know, obviously Avengers is very popular, all the Marvel movies. So they started off back in like 2012 or something like that.
Man of Steel was
2013 maybe, actually.
That might be right.
That was the first one. It was Man of Steel.
2014, okay. Because Batman vs. Superman was 2016.
Thank you,
then
Dilbert
Justice
Tax.
League. Because I think it was Man of Steel, then Batman vs. Superman, then Wonder Woman, and then the original Justice League.
Nick
And
on the
then a
chat
whole
says,
bunch
what
of
if
other
Disney did a Shueisha Shonen Jump cinematic universe? It's called Jump Force, and it sucks.
Well, this might be the time to reveal that. I think I might have led on to this a little bit, but I told you this last night, but I don't think I've told Grant this, but to lead up to us watching this, subjected myself to watching.
Why did you do this?
Because it had to be done. I thought it would be good because neither of you have really. I guess Kevin has seen Man of Steel, and you said you've seen Suicide Squad.
Really quick, I want to go over our history with this. There aren't that many movies in the cinematic universe. Let me just finish chewing my pretzel real quick.
I haven't seen any of these. I've seen zero. I went in bone dry.
So you went in raw dogging this series. You didn't see any of the other movies, and you didn't see any of them.
I saw nothing. Yeah,
I saw Man of Steel when that came out in theaters. I saw Suicide Squad for some fucking reason. That was it. I hated Man of Steel was okay. I hated Suicide Squad, and Batman vs. Superman. I just heard nothing but atrocious things.
Right.
Josh, if you want to explain your history with the DCCU.
Yeah, so I had seen, I think at this point I've seen everything except for Aquaman and...
Which I didn't even know existed until today.
And the new Wonder Woman, the second one.
84, Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah. I haven't seen either of those, but I've seen all the others, which is Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Shazam.
Oh, I forgot about Shazam.
See, and that sounds like one of the ones that I would actually want to see.
Shazam's
I feel
fine.
Like that's what I've heard.
It's actually enjoyable. The first Wonder Woman and Shazam, I think, are the only two that are even remotely worth watching. Because the other ones I think are Suicide Squad. Oh, Birds of Prey, which is came out last year.
Yeah, I guess sorta.
It was. I didn't love it, but it could have been a lot
waste
worse.
Of time to me.
All of these seem
no
like
offense,
a waste
Josh.
of time.
Yeah. It's really morbid curiosity that keeps me watching them, which is not a good reason to watch them, but it is a reason.
I mean, we are here talking about it out of morbid
Yes.
curiosity.
We did just watch a 4-hour movie.
we must be the last
Curiosity.
content creators on the internet to be discussing the Snyder Cut at this point. Everybody's already had their take at it, their shake at it. And now the Thought Cops are finally here, or the Fire Bros, whatever,
Right.
to finally give our definitive review of Justice League, the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, but so not even talking about the DC universe, but just in terms of the Snyderverse, I had seen Man of Steel around the time it came out. I didn't see it in theaters, but I saw it soon after. And then I saw Batman vs. Superman in theaters, knowing it was going to be terrible, just morbidly curious, needed to know
Just had
what
to waste
it
your
was.
money on that.
Honestly, and we'll get into this later, but I kind of love Batman versus Superman, not in terms of it being good, but in terms of it being like enjoyably bad. Like I find it like to be kind of a fascinating movie.
You see, my issue with this is, I love a horrible movie like The Room,
Right.
Birdemic, Trolls 2. Horrible movies, very fun to watch. This was a horrible movie that had so much money funneled into that, could have solved the fucking coronavirus crisis.
Right,
if
of
if we
course,
just put that money into anything else.
And so much hype, too.
Yes. And that's what I was kind of thinking, because the Justice League movie came out. I didn't realize it was as old as it is. It came out in 2017.
Right. And I
then
saw that around the time it came out.
This
too.
came out this year, 2021.
Yeah.
The Snyder Cut. So 4 years. And there was always this hype around it, release the Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut. This is what they wanted?
This is absolutely what they wanted. The people who were
likes
asking for the
this
Snyder
crap?
Cut,
That's what I was saying earlier. I'm like,
Yeah.
do people like this? Whether it's I'm out of the demographic or anything, it's I have a hard time believing even kids or teenagers like this. I feel like the only people who like this is a very, very, very niche demographic of fucking losers who wanted this movie.
I don't disagree with you, because as I'm sitting here watching it, I'm just there's people out there that want, we were talking about, every once in a while they'll drop a reference to something else that happens in some comic book, and that there's a handful of people that look at that reference, but everything else is just I feel like there's no humor in it. There's no joy in it. There's no, every scene feels like just a cliche scene where people just say cliche lines to each other and play out cliche ideas, and that we have to watch it time and time again play out with everybody before they all get together, and we don't know what their purpose is for getting together, just that they have to get together.
Well, maybe Josh could actually explain a little better, because I know you were giving us a little bit of insight as the movie began, because Grant and I are not as up to date on the movies, so I know you were saying this takes place from the end of Batman versus Superman.
So just to explain what I did recently is I'd only seen Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and the original cut of Justice League once. So I rewatched all of those. Man of Steel, and not just the three of them, but I watched Man of Steel, I watched Batman vs. Superman, the theatrical cut, and then the Ultimate Edition, and then I watched the theatrical cut of Justice League before we watched this.
I feel sorry for you, man.
Yeah, man.
So, Man of Steel, I also, when I originally saw it, back around the time it came out, I also didn't hate it. I remember hearing a lot of hate about it and seeing it and being like, that wasn't good, but it wasn't as bad as I had heard people making it out to be.
We got the chat. Chat is here for you, man. They're saying self-harm is not okay, Josh.
Yeah, they're trying to talk you down from this.
It's too late, guys. It's too late. It's over. That's a good thing, though, is it is over. I will never watch any of these movies ever again.
I'm glad that I didn't watch any of them. I'll be completely honest. And I get that, there's probably some people that hear me say that and go oh, well, you didn't watch any of them. You should have. No, it should be coherent. It should be cohesive. Like, what the fuck are these orc guys? What the fuck? Why do I care about anything? And like Kevin said, like, as we were watching it, and Kevin keeps going, "Where's the Joker? Where's the Joker? Why the fuck do I care about the Joker when there's this like army of like super fucking super bugs that are just like flying around destroying planet to planet to planet? Like, why the fuck do I give a shit if Joker's in this or not? Like, we're so far beyond that.
He was so prominently featured in the trailer. You know, I was like,
right.
That was a big feature. It's like Jared Leto is back as the Joker.
And he's good this time.
Yes.
We'll get to
no
his part in
cringe
the
tattoos.
Movie. Unbelievable. But yeah, what I was going to say about Man of Steel is rewatching it this time. Holy fucking shit. It's by far the most boring of all. I mean, this definitely
a lot of boring.
This
Superman
definitely gives it a
too.
run for its money because of just how long and how dragged out so much of it is. But Man of Steel is just so generic and bland, and nobody gives a good performance in it except for maybe like Russell Crowe. It's really terrible.
These movies are just like guzzling down flavorless paste for like several hours at a time.
Yeah, especially with the length of I mean, this is any time, like with all of the superhero movies coming out and shit like that. And, you know, I keep saying like, I don't want to watch any of them. Watching this has been my greatest fear come to realization.
Absolutely.
It definitely exceeded all expectations of how horrible it was for me.
It absolutely blew me away. And Dilbert brings up a good question, which is, did we watch the Snyder Cut or the Gray Snyder Cut? We watched the normal one.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I could have handled the black and white one. But like, here's the thing too, is I feel like the black and white one is the correct way to watch this just because it feels so cliche and so like cut and paste that it's like putting a black and white Instagram filter on something and calling yourself a photographer.
Right. And that kind of brings me to a point too with Zack Snyder as a creative person in general.
He's bad.
Like, I do think that he kind of like understands the layout and how things should look and how they, you know, from
he's like an AI bot.
That's what I was going to think too, because the movie is shockingly similar to the MCU franchise. Like where it's like, we have to collect the shapes to beat the bad guy. And the bad guy also wants the shapes and colors too. And it's like, I know Josh here brought up a point where it's like this came out before Avengers Endgame. However, not that long before, and B, Avengers, the MCU movies had started doing this plot line in 2008.
Right.
So they knew exactly.
Yeah, they knew what was coming. They knew what plot, the Infinity Gauntlet plot was being done.
Right.
And
at least
decided
like that
to do
movie
a
was
plot
like
that's
fun
exactly
in its
the same.
own right. But it's like, this was just like, like you said, Grant, like an AI bot was trying to recreate it. Yeah. And it was just like, they were like, again, trying to play catch up with the Marvel movies where it's like, and it's like, I know we've already, you know, everybody knows like, you know, Bruce Wayne's parents get killed, yada, yada, yada. He becomes Batman. But it's like, I know we are tired of seeing it. Maybe that's just a sign to stop making the movies in general, but you can't just start a new franchise, skip over everybody's backstory, or just shove it all into one movie. Like they were shoving the Aquaman, like we know there's an Aquaman movie that came out after this, but they were shoving every fucking backstory into the movie, and it was just a bloated disaster.
Because they didn't have the patience or the time to build up all of these characters the way the MCU did over like 10 years or something,
at
and
least,
like before Infinity
War.
The
thing is that you don't even need to do that. You just have a guy come in and be like, "Hey, I'm Cyborg. Let's get started." And you're like, "Okay, yeah, let's get started. Let's go." Instead, it's just this fucking long, boring, like just here's the character. He's a robot man. Have him blow things up. I don't know.
That'd be fine, but it's like all it was just like mumbling and like Hans Zimmer-esque score.
Yeah, I don't think there was Hans Zimmer, but it was. Like
they were going for that thing, and it was just like this generic slop. Just the whole thing again feels like this is the finish line for like art and cinema. This is just the end. And again, I am not someone who is like quick to be like, "Oh, I fucking superhero movies are what, you know, the end of the world." I don't hate them. I don't particularly like them. I was saying in the Discord today where there's a lot of superhero content I wish I could enjoy more of because, like, I feel like there's even so many, like, what if superheroes were dark kind of things now, too. Like, I love The Boys, then we get the Watchmen movie, the Watchmen show, Invincible just came out, and apparently that's supposed to be good. But I can only handle, like, I can't take the fact that everything is superheroes now. It's like superheroes ain't good or superheroes are bad. And it's just like everything is superheroes. And this is just like the most generic, just straightforward take. Again, it was just like guzzling paste for 4 hours. And it was a slog. It was horrible. I would say, like, there barely was a single good thing I could say about it. I do remember there was some, I think the only positive thing I could really think about, which I mentioned during the movie, was I did like some of the costume designs. Like, I really liked the main villain, Steppenwolf, had this cool, like, armor he was wearing where it almost looked like it was made of, like, bullets or something. And look, it kind of breathed a little bit too, which I thought, oh my god, that's kind of cool looking. But then it was like, this dialogue was like this. We have to collect the mother boxes.
Warcraft character.
Just like no depth, none. All he was focused on was we have to collect the colors and shapes to beat the bad guys, and it was just nothing. But yeah, I guess God. I mean, the movie again was just a complete fucking disaster in every right. I thought. I'm remiss to even, acknowledge the fucking costume design. So yeah, Batman looked kind of cool, Steppenwolf looked kind of cool, but then you have fucking, like, God, what was it? Like, I'm trying to think. There was like one that looked really bad in general. I can't recall off the top of my head.
Cyborg was not the easiest to look at, man.
Cyborg looked so bad.
They could have just slapped a metal plate on his head.
He looked like unfinished.
Yeah, and apparently, and this might be what you're gonna say, Josh, but like, apparently in the other version he looked like worse, and so this is like better.
I don't know if this was better. I've heard people say that, but like,
it's just too metal. It's just like, just make him metal. Just make him look like real. He didn't look real. He looked like a fucking a floating head.
Yeah, I think the only character whose costume I like kind of unilaterally is Wonder Woman's. I think she's the only one who has like a good design.
And even then, it was just it was exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah,
which is like, that's fine.
Yeah, it's nothing special.
I don't know. And again, I didn't see Wonder Woman, but it was just the fact that people are like, "Oh, this is one of the good DC movies," and it's like, but the rest are crap. I'm not going to waste my fucking time.
And you shouldn't.
It really gives me a different sort of appreciation for other bad movies from other directors. Like, all I can think is just like, man, Michael Bay might make really shitty movies, but at the very least, he's like, you know what people like is boobs and explosions and fast cars and action scenes and explosions, and it's just like, yeah, those are fun.
Well, I'll be honest. It's funny that you say that, because I actually felt that way with this movie with other movies in the Snyderverse. Like, I genuinely think that Batman versus Superman comes off as like a work of art compared to this, because this is so bad. I don't think I've been this miserable watching a movie. I was trying to think, like, I would rather watch the theatrical cut of Justice League like 3 more times than watch this cut one more time.
Why do it at all?
I'm not saying that the theatrical cut.
Self-harming.
I'm saying the theatrical cut is terrible, and I'm not saying going to watch it again. I'm just saying if someone held a gun to my head and said, either watch the theatrical cut 3 times or watch the Snyder cut one more time, I would take the theatrical cut. That's how bad this version was. And I was thinking, like, I would rather watch Rise of Skywalker than this.
I was also comparing it to that because I feel like Rise of Skywalker also suffered from the same, just like generic, like, go to place, find shape.
But at least it's not 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking about how I don't think I've been this miserable watching a movie since Ready Player One.
Wow. I mean, Star Wars is up there for me. Rise of Skywalker? Or is it Rise of Skywalker?
Rise of Skywalker, yeah.
That was bad.
That was bad, but it was shorter. And even Ready Player One, it's like, fuck. It had a clear plot line of like, get the 3 things, like get to the end of the game, win. And it's just like, man, I can understand that. Like, what the fuck was going on with the fucking orbs? The fucking orbs or the boxes or whatever the fuck. Just like, go find the shape. And it's just like why? And like,
yeah, I would definitely rather watch Ready Player One again than this again. But I mean, I think Ready Player One, I went into being like, this probably won't be very good, but whatever. And it was like so much worse and more bland and like mind numbing than I was expecting it to be. Whereas Snyder Cut, like, it was horrible having like sitting through this, but at least I braced myself for it. At least I kind of knew I was getting into a 4-hour slog.
Yeah, I think I was the only person smart enough to take an edible before watching it, so it was enjoyable, but it was not good.
There were certain parts that were so bad they were enjoyable. Actually, there's only one, and that was like a scene they added with the Flash where he first shows up, where he like saves that girl from the car. I thought that was hilarious.
In what way? Like,
just in how batshit horrible was constructed.
Because it was supposed to be like funny, and that was something I want to touch on too. Ezra Miller as the Flash in this movie is one of the worst parts of the entire fucking movie.
And that's true of the theatrical cut as well.
Dude,
horrible.
I'm not like SJW-y about this type of stuff, but his depiction was like offensive. Like, I was watching him and I was like, this is offensive.
So you think he was like supposed to be, so he's sort of like an awkward kind of caricature, and what, that you thought that he was supposed to be autistic? Like
far beyond autistic, like R-worded.
Because I saw it more like it was kind of like that like new Star Wars movie kind of humor where, like, I think I said during the movie was like, oh, you shoot first or I go shoot first, and it's like they're all kind of pretending to be like Seth Rogen kind of humor, like, oh, you're gonna do this, okay.
See, I kept comparing it to Big Bang Theory.
Yes,
because like there was the one time where he's talking, and Jason Momoa's character, Aquaman, goes, why don't you say that in English, Poindexter?
Oh my god, I couldn't believe that. It like
the fact. So going into this, the theatrical cut of this movie is on its own such a mess. It's a like tonally incoherent, aesthetically bad. It's like it clearly feels like it was cut to shit. It felt like there was like one movie that was made and then the studio came in and just ripped it to absolute shreds and turned it into like a Frankenstein's monster. But watching this version, this bloated 4-hour version where I want to say like 99% of the material that was added for this version felt like multiple times worse than anything that's in the theatrical cut. And it blows my mind because I just pulled up the Rotten Tomatoes page for this, for Zack Snyder's Justice League, specifically the Snyder Cut.
Right.
It's got a 71% based on almost 300 reviews, with the consensus being, from what I've seen, that critics seem to think that this is... Most of what I've seen is they're not saying that it's good, but they're saying it's better than the theatrical cut. Those people, these critics are insane.
Well, and again, like,
I don't understand how you could sit through this absolute fucking mind-numbing monstrosity of a movie and think that this was somehow an upgrade on the theatrical cut. The theatrical cut is flawed and not a good movie by any stretch. But compared to this, like, this made it look like, this made me think like, wow, like, the studio might not have made a good movie out of this garbage, but they at least made a tolerable movie compared to what would have happened if Zack Snyder had had his full vision realized like he has here. It just,
That's where I feel like the very concept of like a director's cut is like such a bloviated thing. What's his name? I think H Bomber Guy did a really good video on like the concept of director's cuts and how they're good marketing. That's all that it is like a fucking marketing term at this point.
Buy the movie again, see the movie again.
Right, exactly. And like part of me, so again, I haven't seen the theatrical cut, so I can't like base any of my criticism off of that. But like part of me feels like fucking that Zack Snyder watched like The Irishman and was like, yeah, there's like a lot of depth, and like I think people like that it's longer because you could sort of like draw out these storylines and so much, it had so much more meaning. And it's just like, man, The Irishman wasn't even that necessarily fantastic.
I don't think any movie should be 4 hours long. Ever.
He took all of the wrong, like,
the Lord of the Rings extended cuts are the only things that I've seen that are that long that are like acceptable.
It was like all of the worst parts of all of these movies that we're talking about, like any superhero movie, or at times it felt like a Lord of the Rings movie where it's just like battle sequence and you're like, but why are they fighting this battle? Who are fighting these battle? Why are they fighting this battle? What's this over? Why do I care about any of this? Who are these people?
The mother box. We're out to get the mother box.
So the stuff that they added for this, as someone who has seen the theatrical cut and just watched it recently, like
God
last week, I want to say the vast majority of stuff that was added to this that pads out the running time isn't even like new material. I mean, there definitely is some new material and we'll talk about it, but the majority of stuff that makes this version longer is he took certain sequences, left them like plot-wise exactly the same, but just stretched them out like he just grabbed them on both sides and just fucking pulled as hard as he could until it was this like massive bloated scene that's like 3 times as long, but nothing actually happens that doesn't happen in the theatrical cut. There's a few sequences like this, like right at the beginning of the movie, there's a scene where Steppenwolf gets the mother box from Themyscira or whatever.
Dude, I'm
going to
be completely honest right now. You talking about how long it is giving me anxiety.
Yeah, I'm like
we've already sat through the movie, and I feel like there's only so many ways we can say like, yeah, they made it really long. That as you're talking about this, I'm just like, okay, could you get to the end? Could you just fucking say what you're gonna say?
Yeah, that sequence is like 10 minutes long in the original movie. In this one, it feels like a half hour. Like, and all he does is add like extra shots that weren't in it that don't add anything. Like, there's this whole sequence of like the building falling off the cliff. That's basically what, like, the sort of thing that he added to that sequence. It doesn't really add anything. It's just like more pretty garbage to look at.
I wouldn't even call it pretty.
Exactly. Yeah. And he also, I noticed this, made slow-mo shots that were already in slow-mo in the original cut and made them even slower. There's a shot of like when one of the Amazonians is sliding under a door. I feel like that he like made that shot twice as slow.
I mean, he is stuck at 13 years old. Like, he is like a pre-adolescent.
And again, not in a fun way. Like, Michael Bay is like 13 in a fun way. He's just like, yeah, boobs, fast cars, big explosions. It's just like, dude, just do that. Just have Michael fucking Bay direct this. It would have been funner. It would have been better.
I think like it honestly, maybe if somebody else could write them, maybe like he could just and then even then it's like you talk about the slow motion, all this other crap. It's just like, I don't fucking like this guy at all.
I think I was saying this. I was like going over what I would fix about Batman versus Superman in the Discord at one point. I'm sure some of the people in the Discord remember this. And I genuinely think Zack Snyder has the ability to be like a passionate filmmaker who cares about what he's making. I just don't think he belongs in the director's chair. He doesn't belong anywhere near a script or anywhere near
he shouldn't
actors.
Have a job. I should have his job.
I feel like he can work alongside like a cinematographer and like give like notes on visual aesthetics, but with strict supervision, because I do think he's capable of creating like cool, interesting visual moments. He just also is capable of creating really ugly garbage shit as well. And I feel like if you had someone like treating him like a baby and like having the like editor's cut basically over him, they could take his ideas and mold them into something worthwhile.
Which is where I think that like director's cuts are bullshit, because it's just like, just because you're the one person doing this job, like you have to have people telling you no, and you have to have people reining it in and just going like, man.
Yeah, this is like megalomania.
Yeah.
It's just this guy, like, this comes across as a selfish, bloated, like, look at me.
The whole concept of, like, an artistic vision that is, like, so, like, purist that it goes through the lens of just this one person, and this one person has the vision, is complete bullshit. Many people worked on the movie. Everybody made it possible. And I'm not saying, like, I don't know if this is exactly sort of what happened with Zack Snyder's ego or anything like that. I make no prescriptions of that, but just the very concept and attitude towards people saying, like, oh, it's the Snyder Cut. Like, it's his vision of what it was bullshit. It was terrible.
Well, I have a theory about this movie, about the Snyder Cut. And in order to say it, I have to say, like, about Batman versus Superman, I watched the Ultimate Edition of it to see, because I've heard people say, oh, that version's better than the theatrical cut. And it is barely, but, like, it doesn't make it anywhere near a better movie.
Like, they have to go back and... oh, we fucked up this multi-million-dollar blockbuster.
But it's like, even for that actually feels like a real, like a more traditional director's cut, because they really actually added stuff in that had been cut from the original movie. It's not adding in new shit that he shot. It actually adds some stuff in that does actually make certain scenes like make more sense. Doesn't make the plot any better. Doesn't make the writing any better. It just like is one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, I guess this sequence makes slightly more sense than it did before.
Sure.
So in that movie, as terrible as it is, I don't feel like Zack Snyder like phoned it in. I feel like everything that's in that movie, like, he deliberately crafted, and it's a bad movie, and the choices that are made on a script level and the acting performances, like the decisions he makes are terrible.
Yeah.
But they're very deliberate, and he has a vision, and it makes sense. This movie, I feel like what happened is there were a bunch of people clamoring for a Snyder Cut that didn't exist. This version of this movie did not exist.
Yeah.
You can't say that it existed when he made a bunch of reshoots.
Right.
Like, that's not a cut.
What happened is Warner Brothers, or I guess that's who it is, Warner Brothers.
And the Warner sister.
Went to Zack Snyder, said, listen, we'll give you, man, I feel like we could find out what the budget for this cut was, but they just dropped a fucking like truckload of money at his house and said, make a Snyder Cut. And what he did with that money, instead of being like, oh, I'm gonna write a new version of the script that is significantly better,
he could. I don't think that he could have just redone the whole
No.
movie. That would have been too much.
No,
we already have another Suicide Squad reboot.
But
like, we can't have a full new Justice League.
It's
like,
a
I'm
complete
sorry.
disaster.
Yeah, and they
like
didn't,
the whole production.
I don't think they wanted him to either, because we'll get into this too, but I don't think it's so funny how balls deep this version goes in on like potentially continuing into the future, even though I think Warner Brothers has made it extremely clear that they have no intention of following like Snyder's vision going forward. Like, they've already moved past and kind of retconned it And I don't think they have any intention of like going back to his vision for movies going forward.
Snyder Cut was $70 million.
$70 million
over the $300 million that was there. Thank you, Dilbert Tax.
Yes, thank you. So what I think he did with that $70 million is he went, instead of adding substance to the movie, I'm just going to give a bunch of money to all of my actor friends and all of my like CGI buddies to just make stuff. Like he just took all the money and said, let's just make stuff and add it in. And that's what this is. It's the original theatrical cut with nothing of substance added and just a whole bunch of extra stuff. Which I think the intent is just Zack Snyder spreading the wealth around, basically being like, I just want to pay a bunch of people. He's being a good
socialist.
And Dilbert text in the chat here says it's the Adam Sandler technique.
Yes.
Like Adam Sandler, he gets his friends together, they make like 7 Netflix movies, go on vacation.
Right. It's just a way for him to pay his buddies to make shit, basically. That's what this felt like to me.
Oh man!
And the fact that anyone else doesn't see it that way blows my mind.
I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's like honestly upsetting me.
Can we at least talk about the last scene?
Yeah, okay. Yes. So again, we mentioned at the top of the show that the Joker is prominently featured in the trailers for this movie. Oh, he's going to be in it. Like it was a big deal because Joker with Joaquin Phoenix was a huge hit. Jared Leto's going to take a crack at it again. They're going to get rid of the tattoos and they're going to make him look right. Who fucking cares? So then he's in this. He doesn't come in till, and I'm not kidding you, the 4-hour mark of a 4-hour and 5-minute long movie in a dream sequence.
Yeah, literally.
Batman's having a bad dream. And the Joker's in it.
So I want to give...
It's not even fucking happening.
So I want to give some context for this. In Batman vs. Superman, there's a scene.
Make it quick.
I will. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. There's a scene. It's the most batshit scene in the movie. It's in the theatrical cut, and they don't change it in the Ultimate Edition, which blows my mind. There's just a random scene out of nowhere where suddenly we're in like this dystopian future. This like civilization has been destroyed, and Batman is like
fucking cyberpunk goggles.
I kind of like his cyberpunk outfit. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's neat. But he fights some bug people that are in this movie, and then he gets captured, and Superman, like, he's tied up, and Superman comes to him and is like, "You're the reason Lois Lane died," and he's like about to kill him, and then Bruce Wayne wakes up at his desk. But the scene's not over. Then the Flash, this future version of the Flash, comes through a portal. We haven't met the Flash at this point, by the way. He doesn't show up until Justice League. Is like coming through a portal and like shouting some nonsense, being like, "You have to change the future. You have to."
Wait, this is Batman vs. Superman?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
You have to. It's Lois. She's the key. You gotta stop it. It's really gonna happen. And then I shit you not, Bruce Wayne wakes up again. He wakes up a second time at his desk. And that's it. That's like, there's no explanation for that scene. It never gets referenced again. It's not referenced in the theatrical cut of Justice League. But here, finally, in the Snyder Cut, we get a callback to it. And it still turns out to be a dream, at least apparently. I do think...
I don't care.
I think there's supposed to be an implication that it's like an alternate timeline and that he's like having a vision of it. I mean, I watched the movie.
Trying to explain it.
I watched the movie.
But why?
I don't care. I'm not saying I care. I just observed it.
I mean, this is just a complete... I mean, I don't know. It's just even upsetting to hear about. Just the fact that it's like it's just like this much money was wasted. All this time and effort and money to people who can't even make a coherent script or movie.
Right.
I just thought the scene was hilarious because, it represents something that we're never going to see pay off again. It doesn't give a satisfying payoff to something that already didn't have a satisfying payoff. But the best part about it is definitely how horrible Jared Leto's performance is.
Oh, he's bad.
And
It's
just like the
it's
fact
as
that
bad
he
as
was-
you'd hope it would be.
Just the fact that he's in there at all, and that there's a level of like perceived importance. Or even I
Right.
was thinking about this with Lex Luthor, where Lex Luthor is in the movie at the very beginning, and then he's in for one scene about 3 hours in, and he just sits there and he like sort of like has his fingers clasped together, and then he's saying like, "Oh, this thing that is bad that I am planning to happen, it will happen," and you're just like, why is this important? Why does this need to be in the movie? Who the fuck cares? What are you talking about?
I would be interested to talk to somebody who liked it, just out of like morbid curiosity.
I'm
like,
not.
what did they see in this? Because
Even,
it's not even something like, oh, I can see how people, maybe it's for younger people. No, it's like, I can't imagine anybody enjoying this.
so I was live tweeting my experience of watching it, and there were like a handful, like 2 or 3 people that were like, well, it is just sort of like it's a popcorn film. It's just like, oh, you see bright lights and big colors. Fucking Asterios told me to watch it on a bigger TV.
What?
That it's a bunch of cool fights and stuff. And it's like, no, it's not. It looks like bad CGI Space Lord of the Rings.
Like, I would say the Marvel movies are like fun popcorn movies. This was just like,
It was joyless.
Also,
Yes.
all of those fight sequences, like all of those big fight sequences, are in the theatrical cut. So there's literally zero reason to watch this version of the movie if that's what you're looking for.
And they were like bad and they were pointless, and there was too much going on. It was too convoluted. It was too much visually on screen. When there's so much happening, it's like, it's where you would look at something like Game of Thrones and like one character like fighting another character, or some of the bigger battle scenes, and you're just like, I appreciate that because like there's tension, you know what's going on, you know who's involved, you know what's at stake, like the choreography is good. This is just like, they all just look like CPUs set to fight each other. Like, I can't describe it any better than that. It reminds me of the one game where it's like, what happens if you have 100 Shreks fight 100 minions and you like set it and you watch it play out? Like, that's what the fucking fighting in this looked like.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Yeah.
any final thoughts before we give our
I hated
definitive
it. This-
score?
Yeah.
There's not fire bright enough in the universe
Yes.
to burn this with.
Yeah, this is one of the worst things I've ever watched, and like I couldn't recommend it even on the most generous, like,
Oh, get together with
so
your friends.
bad
have some
it's
fun.
good. Yeah,
I didn't
no.
have fun with you guys. I'm gonna be
Absolutely.
honest. Like we were all suffering together,
Right.
and I don't know if that helped or hurt, but like we were just like every like 10 minutes, like one of us would be groaning.
Yeah.
Oh,
Dude, there was one moment where like you gave like a sigh of relief that something was over, and you looked at the screen and something happened, and you like laughed.
when they kicked
God,
Steppenwolf's head into that portal, and like another foot's on top of it, you're like, no, another bad guy. I mean, really, just fucking gutter trash.
Is there something worse than burning?
No, I mean, that's it. We
Can
just
you-
destroy it. It's destroyed. No
Covered in my
longer
own
good.
fecal matter as a flame ignition. Just
Yeah, it's not really punishment. It's just like either get rid of it or keep it. That's the basic premise. I'd say get rid of it.
Yep.
There's nothing redeemable about
Done.
this. The only thing that's important is like to take its fucking decapitated head and stick it on a pike outside of the castle for everyone to see. Like, don't fucking look at this anymore.
Right.
Like, this is what happens. Do you see what happens as a warning?
Yeah. And I think it's hilarious that DC and like Warner Brothers basically saved their hides by completely abandoning this vision. And like, this is them like paying out Snyder, being like, cool, you get to do this and you're done. We're done with it.
Let's move on though.
Yeah, please.
Let's just talk about Bad Trip.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the Eric Andre movie on Netflix. Bad Trip, which I actually didn't really know about until it was released. I
They
heard a little
filmed
bit
it
of
a
it.
long time ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know it was like
Was
pre-pandemic.
supposed to come out last year.
Yes. So Bad Trip is it stars Eric Andre and fake Hannibal Buress.
Yeah,
I forget the guy's name. He's funny. I don't mean to disparage him.
He is funny, but you could tell that part was written for Hannibal, and that they were like, I think Hannibal just like was like, I don't want to do the Eric Andre show.
I don't know what's going on with Hannibal.
Why
anymore,
or what or
He's
what
he's
happened.
in Hannibal's in like the first half of the recent Eric Andre show season.
So yeah, I mean, it's a classic spoof. Not really a spoof movie. It's like a prank movie. I don't know what you would really want to say. It's like Borat.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar to
Yeah.
Borat. There's like a loose plot. There's these public pranks and stuff. It feels very similar. At least to me, it felt very similar to a long episode of the show, like the Eric Andre show.
Right.
I'm a big fan of the Eric Andre show. I like it a lot. I haven't watched all the new season. I don't think I enjoy it maybe quite as much as I did maybe several years ago. But I would say I think Eric Andre is like very funny.
I agree.
And the shit in this movie is there's a lot of gold in this movie. I'll say that.
Yeah, I feel like there were a lot of parts that I really did enjoy, and that also I also felt like a long form narrative didn't feel like it fit.
It felt kind of a little forced, but it felt it felt like a necessity for the movie to exist. So the whole plot of the movie is the other guys, Eric Andre's character is in love with this girl from his high school that comes to their town in Florida to visit, and she's like, oh, I'm in New York, and maybe if you're around you can say hi, whatever. So he's like, I'm going to New York, I'm going to go see her, I'm going to confess my feelings.
Right.
And then they steal his friend, the sidekick. They steal his friend's sister's car, and she is this criminal. She's in jail. She escapes from jail, and it's just a road trip movie backdrop to a bunch of just really, really funny pranks. Which the first one made me laugh a lot. Was the movie opens with immediately you're in a prank where he's working in that car dealership, and he's doing the car's cleaning with the big vacuum hose that just sucks off his entire jumpsuit, and just the reactions from people was very funny. To get this out of the way, I will say what I really appreciated about the movie, what set it apart from something like Borat, was they could have very, very easily gone for an angle of, look at how ignorant these people are, look at how intolerant these people are, look at how stupid we're making these people look.
Right.
And the movie didn't do that really at all. It was honestly, everybody was pretty fucking chill from all different kinds of backgrounds, and everybody, they were getting a little bit caught up in the narratives that they were spinning behind the scenes, but nobody was there was no horrific shit really that you might see in Borat that people do, and that's what
they weren't doing it at the expense of the people who were involved.
Also Borat is finding situations, he goes to fucking CPAC, and this, which also is what I appreciate about Borat, is the fact that it was there is a through line and there's a point to it, whereas it's just okay, like you were saying, the whole thing about, he's asking this girl out just necessitates the movie. In the same way that the Tim and Eric movie, it's just we bought a mall. Let's do. And
I feel like that was in a way that felt like they were almost making fun of the necessity. They just had this horrible, stupid plot where that was the joke behind it. Where this was not so much aware in the same sense.
Right.
However, I didn't hate that aspect of it. Again, it felt like a long version of the show. Right. The show doesn't need a plot. It's just a goofy fake talk show with these cutaway segments. And I feel like it makes a lot more sense in that structure with the cut, very quick, very fast-paced, chaotic editing from Doug Pound and other people who work on the show.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. And I think it's definitely weak in terms of Eric Andre's work and stuff like this that he's done. But I also really appreciated what it was trying to do. While I was watching, I was like, man, this is really dumb. Like you said, the plot is super shallow. It's the most simple fucking plot you could imagine. And the stuff that is clearly scripted is definitely the most forgettable stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
But that said, it's enjoyable. Like the way they execute it is good. It's interesting because like you guys were comparing it to Borat, and in Borat there's a bit more freedom because he's setting up situations but then letting them go basically in any direction that they go. Whereas in this movie, they clearly had like ideas of where they needed scenes to go and end up.
Yeah.
So they were like pulling these pranks and including people's real reactions as part of the movie and their behavior as part of the movie, but they had to put in a lot of work to make sure that things like stayed on the rails and that the scenes went in the directions that they needed them to go for the plot, which on one hand kind of neutered the pranks a little bit because they didn't have as much freedom to let things get as chaotic as they could. But on the other hand, I
heard some crazy stories.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, on the other hand, it was impressive how they managed to make it work that way.
Okay.
But I think to what you were maybe about to say is at the end of the movie during the credits, they kind of show how they did like a bunch of different takes of all of these scenes, which makes sense. They set up the scenarios and ran them with a bunch of different people. And then used the best takes. Basically,
he did almost get stabbed.
Oh,
right, and you see that in the film.
The guy comes out with a knife. And it's like they had like that code word or whatever. I forget what the code word was, where they had to like if it was going like in a really bad direction.
Right.
But there was a part where he almost did say he almost got stabbed, and like I was waiting for that part in the movie. I'm like, oh, and that guy comes out with the fucking like switchblade out of the convenience store. But one thing that's funny to me is like some of what I like about Eric Andre is like, I mean, his pranks do go pretty far, but they're not harmful per se. But I do feel like some of the stuff could, like, even when you say, oh, it was just a prank, it was just a joke, I could see that it could be like traumatic in some sense, like that when he's sticking his hand gets caught in the blender.
Yeah,
and there's blood everywhere. And now they've done that in the show too, but it's like people there, like it's like, yeah, they find out later on it's fake, whatever. But
imagine you just think that that's just what like
you can't just erase that, even though you find out. It's just like that shock is like still in you,
right? Yeah,
and it's really really funny. But I do wonder, like, some of the stuff he does. I wonder like the long term impacts it has on people's mental health.
Right. I mean, like, I keep thinking of the fucking gorilla rape.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
That's definitely the dumbest thing in the movie.
It's the dumbest thing. And, like, it looks like bad. It looks like
a
fake.
selfie.
But also, like, what would you do if you were in that scenario and you saw that? Like, I don't know if right away I would be like, oh, is that a person? Like, I don't know. I don't know what I would think.
So I feel overall I did really enjoy the movie. It was, I would say like it was, I compare it to Borat. It felt like a little more generic than Borat.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I kind of like don't really care. Like it felt what I needed in this time. Again, it's always nice to get these movies, like these high quality, funny movies just dropped on a streaming service. Hey, there it is. Have at it, And it's just like, oh, this is kind of exciting, I don't have to, it's the one silver lining of this whole shitty situation we're in with the pandemic. But it was nice because to be honest, when I saw the promo for it, I was like, I thought it was a whole like scripted movie. I'm like, oh, that looks kind of stupid. I thought it was going to be like bad trip, like drugs. And then it was just like, there is a scene for that, but. I was like worrying it was going to be like, and this is like Eric Andre is just kind of doing some like really lame like scripted comedy, but no, I was very pleasantly surprised that it was not that, and
I just kind of felt bored by it. I don't know, not as bored as the Snyder Cut, obviously. I mean, yes, but I don't know. There were like redeeming factors, and there were times when I sort of laughed out loud, but like, I don't know. It didn't feel all that much like. Again, not to focus too much on the plot shit or anything like that, but it does make me wonder, like, why even have a plot? Like, I just do, like, I get that you have to have it, but I just very much so was very bored by the entire premise.
Yeah,
I feel like some of the pranks just didn't really redeem things and stuff like that. And I don't know, I feel like sort of packaging that stuff as one way versus another. It's like I feel like I get more out of watching like a fucking episode of Candid Camera where people are doing like goofy shit and
again,
whatever.
Like that's for the show. There is actually a show for this. Yeah,
long form of that, and it was just like, do I really want long form of that?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I felt like the plot was like them trying to experiment with the prank format because we have seen movies like Borat and stuff like that, but I don't feel like we've seen something that tries to keep the pranks within like the parameters of a plot as like strictly as this did.
True.
And I appreciate that they tried for it. It's like I wouldn't say to go into it with like super high expectations, but I would definitely recommend it to fans of Eric Andre. It's funny enough.
Yeah,
I definitely had a lot of like laugh out loud moments in it, even if when I was laughing I was like, man, this is dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, overall, like to mention the plot again one more time, was I think like Borat 2 did the plot really well. Like I remember being like, this is like surprisingly good, for a prank movie.
And for them to write around the coronavirus too was also incredible.
But I mean, it is what it is. I think like it's been a while. Honestly, I would say I liked it a lot just because there hasn't been like a really funny, good modern comedy movie in a while besides Borat 2. So and I feel like we've been in need for that in a while. It's like maybe the short form thing does lend itself better to the format of Eric Andre's style and humor. Right. But, I like Eric Andre a lot. It's cool to see him, get the success he deserves with this movie. And just overall, I enjoyed a solid comedy movie, because it's been a while. So I would say that I would put it in the library personally. It wasn't like fucking amazing, but I mean, I feel like it was what it had to be. And I laughed a lot. I did, I had a good time.
Yeah, I would support library for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say like put it on the cart.
Okay.
Just because it was like, I mean, I didn't expect anything out of it, and I was like greeted with that response, which was like, you didn't expect anything, and here's what you didn't expect, and I'm like, this is exactly what I expected.
Makes sense.
I don't like it. It didn't do all that much for me.
Speaking of what you could possibly expect from something that's strange. Let's talk about Ma.
Mm-hmm.
This is a movie I suggested to watch because I saw the trailer for this movie, I think before Get Out or something.
Yeah, I think I remember being in the theater with you when we saw the trailer for it originally. And you being like, oh, that looks like it could be good.
So this is like, I don't think I said that.
Retconning it.
Octavia Spencer, she's she was in The Help, and she was in I think The Shape of Water and some other movies. Mostly thoughtful roles, I would say.
Right.
This is like a very weird movie. It's a horror movie where she plays the character Ma.
And I think her point was to like get away from some of that typecast, which
I get,
I get, and I do think that she's like a good actor too.
Yeah,
like she's good at what she does, and like she has, I think, a very good range, and it did show itself well in this movie. But like the movie, I don't think was like that good.
Nah,
unfortunately.
Yeah. So
because she is very good and she's very impressive, but.
And again, I no, honestly, my issue is absolutely not with her. I think it was cool, not to play the whole identity politics thing, but I don't know that I've seen, like, there aren't really a lot of horror movies or really a lot of movies in general where there's like a black woman as a villain.
Right.
For whatever reason. And I think it's cool they just kind of fucking went for it. And it's
being black isn't really important to the plot at all.
No, and I liked it.
It plays into it in very sort of.
Oh, a couple times it's mentioned very, very briefly, but like she's like, this takes place in this like small town where it's like we follow these like high schoolers who are just, we're just high school kids, we're just having the time of our lives. we want to drink beer and stuff. And they're trying to get people to pay for beer for them outside the liquor store so they can drive around in this fucking van and drink beer in a field because I guess that's what you do in Ohio.
Yeah. Which, okay, I buy it.
And all their parents still live in the town, so it's a bunch of townies and their kids and everything. And also Ma is a townie, so all the parents are the same exact age, went to high school together.
Right. The same graduating year.
Yes.
Surprise, surprise.
Huh, weird. So Ma ends up buying them liquor, and she ends up like getting closer and closer to them. She's like, if you guys want to you can just drink it at my house. I got a basement, you can hang out. I got cool stuff. You can hang, Oh, Ma's awesome. And like nobody really thinks twice for the most part.
Which is like one of the main things, because I do feel like the movie starts off pretty weird. And there's sort of times where it gets better in terms of it making a little more sense, like it clarifies it. But at the very beginning where they're like, yeah, let's go hang out at this old woman's home. It's just like, nobody's going to do that.
Straight to it. Yeah.
No,
I mean, they're dumb. They're dumb teenagers.
Not only
they're
that,
dumb, but like every teenager that I knew growing up with in high school or whatever, it's just like, hey, do you want to hang out with this old woman? No. Why? Like, immediately unbelievable premise. Like, she could have goaded him a little more. She could have did this. She was just so much of a fun, cool, hip woman that like, and they even talk about it like some of the adults are like, yeah, you're a fucking loser. Like, they thought she was a loser. She's just cool and hip because but like, I don't know. I had a hard time getting over that as a premise.
Yeah. I could suspend my disbelief up to the point of them like hanging out in the basement the first time, but there's something that happens the very first time they're in the basement that like to me almost blows the whole thing, where she does like one of the craziest things she does she does some insane things at the end,
right?
But for where it is in the movie is really insane. She points a gun at one of the kids and forces him to strip in front of them.
Oh, yeah.
And he's 16.
Yeah, and then she's just like, hi, it's a joke. The gun's not loaded. He's like fully naked in front of her and their friends, and they're all just like, oh, haha, it's funny.
And
it's
none
funny.
of them were like, you're a pedophile. Like,
at that
like
point,
there's not even a small hint of an indication of like, that shouldn't happen. Like, come on. Like,
even if they like are relieved and are like, okay, it was a funny joke, there's no way in hell they would ever go back there after that.
I guess you just really want to drink beer in a basement somewhere,
Well, it sort of makes sense because a lot of them came from sort of broken homes too, from these people with it's like the loser dad who's out all the time and whatever, and the kid's just like, yeah, I hate my dad, I want to get away from him. It's like, I sort of get it, but it's just like, so what do? You don't hang out with other adults, you hang out with like your friends, or like, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it as a fucking premise. I can't, no matter how much I try and do, I can't get over people being like, yeah, we're going to go hang out at this 50-year-old black lady's house. What's so cool about her? I don't know. She drinks with us. She made one of our friends strip at gunpoint. Like, she's cool. Like, no teenager is going to be like, yeah, awesome. Like, they could have done more. They could have been a little less lazy with it, because I think that the premise is sort of like, there's obviously been things throughout history where like, yeah, older people groom younger people. Like, there's some weird shit that happens. Like, but I feel like they didn't do the legwork. They were just sort of lazy with the premise. I think the premise would have been good if they did it right, and they didn't. They just were like, yeah, just suspend your disbelief. And it's like, it feels lazy.
We also do find out that that she has a daughter of her own, which he's like gaslights into believing that she's like sick and ill and stuff, and has to use a wheelchair. It's all very strange. And it's like, it's coming from this like place of insecurity from her own childhood, where this is again where I really didn't buy the premise, was they're building up to this like this horrible thing that happened in the past.
Yeah.
Where, all the other parents are involved, and it's like, as far as like shocking things go in movies, she just like went into like a closet with one of the popular boys and like they made out or something, and then he came out.
She's giving a blowjob.
Yeah,
and then he came out, and everybody was like laughing, and it was like, I mean, okay,
or was it with a different person?
It was with a different guy. So yeah, it's like I think had been meeting this one guy in there for, they don't really say how long, but she had been meeting this one guy in the closet for at least a couple of times.
Right.
And then one of the times that she goes in there, the lights are off and it's completely dark. She has to go in the dark and can't see him. And I guess they have someone else go in there and she gives someone else a blowjob. And then when she comes out of the room, all like the whole class is in the hallway waiting and laughing, and they reveal to her that it was someone else. And basically they're slut shaming her, basically.
Which is, I mean, like it's a messed up thing, but it wasn't like
right
for the shit that she pulls. She takes it like 100 times further. She like staples a kid's mouth shut. She paints the black kid white.
Yeah.
She loses her fucking mind.
She kills a bunch of people. And it's like, to be fair, Josh, what you were talking about is like legitimately a form of rape. Like it's non-consensual. Right. It is bad. Is it worth murdering like 3 people in town and like doing all this crazy shit? Like they could have, I do feel like they could have built up a little bit more with that. And Kevin, to your point of having like a female black role, they could have really gone into like, hey, these people bullied her. They were racist. They treated her like shit. Maybe they raped her multiple times. Maybe they did awful things. Maybe they like physically abused her constantly.
The stakes were just not high enough.
They could have turned her into this monster, and we would have been like,
I think,
okay, like I sort of get it, but it was just like this one. Yeah. This one incident didn't get me to believe enough that she's like mentally abusing and gaslighting her daughter, that she's trying to not only kill the people that did it, but also get back at their kids.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think the movie tries to justify it by basically just portraying her as just completely like off her rocker, like mentally ill.
But that's like a lame excuse. It's like, but she's crazy.
She is like PTSD, probably schizophrenic. Like I think it's like the movie is suggesting that it's a combination of this traumatic incident that completely ruins her like social outlook, but also that she was like already kind of on the edge of mental illness. I mean, they kind of portray her young self as being like maybe slightly autistic or something.
I didn't see that.
I don't know. Like
I saw that she was like an outsider and that she was sort of like a little bit timid and whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think part of the more, again, sort of like offensive nature of that is to like look at the fact that like she was obviously a victim. And then to portray like a victim as being this level of vengeful, like didn't sit right with me completely. And it is one of those things where it's just like, if it wanted to be sort of like a chick version of what's the Keanu Reeves movie?
Which one?
The one with Keanu Reeves.
Oh yeah,
the John Wick. Oh. If it was maybe not like not an action movie, but like a revenge film where it's just like, oh, these people in the past like raped me and I'm going to get back at them. Like, fine. But the whole concept again of like, she gets back at the teenagers, like, and like the animals and the like. Well, it's just like, man, it's so like, I feel like there's better ways of portraying like victimhood, you know?
Like, I will say, though, that...
she's also portrayed as a villain. She's not... We're almost making it sound like the movie is trying to make her seem like righteous. That it is,
but I'm saying that saying that by not addressing that level of victimhood, that it's lazy writing.
Sure.
Not that it's like,
exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, it was very, very lazy writing.
I agree.
I would say, though, like, you know, I mentioned, like, fun bad movies. I would say this was a fun bad movie. I kind of had fun watching it. I was like, you know, I was laughing a little bit. I'm like, what the fuck, you know? The movie sucked. Okay, spoiler alert. Didn't like it. It was a followable
plot. It wasn't awful.
It wasn't fucking like guzzling flavorless paste for 4 hours, but it was I mean, by the end it was fucking dumb. She like I mean, it gets really dumb where she ties the main boy's father, who's the main boy with the boy who antagonized her as a child. She ties him to a bed and replaces his blood with dog blood from the vet.
But then just slits his wrist.
And then slits his wrist. It was
kind of confusing what she was trying to do.
He slits his wrist anyway, and then they both die in a fucking fire.
Yeah.
She's just laying next to him, just like accepting death. which was weird.
This was a bizarre one. So
Very,
thank you,
very.
Kevin. But
It was on my bucket list. I had to see it.
yeah, no, but really, I'm kind of glad you did, because I was really frustrated with like the first hour or so of this movie, like the whole first half, maybe like 2/3 of this movie, because I felt like it was taking itself pretty seriously. But once it got into that like third act and shit just started going crazy and it got really over the top, like I turned around on it and I started to have fun with it. And by the time it was done,
because you didn't have an option but to,
Yeah.
But by the time I was done, I wasn't upset that I had watched it. I was like, okay, as like a B movie, which is clearly what it is.
Right.
I don't know. It was fun. It was enjoyable. Like I wouldn't tell someone who is interested in watching it not to watch it. Like if you're interested in watching just like a silly B movie, then you could do a lot worse than this. Like this was enjoyable.
It's unique.
At least
I'll give it that much.
I wasn't bored by it at any point.
At some points, I was kind of bored by it, but I would say that as far as my my review final on it, I said I didn't like it. I would like to leave the movie in the house with her and the dog blood and and the guy with the slit wrists, and just disperse among the flames and burn.
Yeah.
I would burn this movie.
Very
I didn't like it.
poetic. Yeah. Again, I think Octavia Spencer is very likable.
Yes.
And that she was the redeeming factor, but she was like the only redeeming factor, and it can't just carry her talent the entire way. You have to have
100%.
a good ensemble. It was just like the whole thing with the kids.
The kids are. There's a lot of weird, like, you're fucking gay. I'm fucking gay. Like stuff like
we're gay but accepting.
it was like
We hate you.
homophobic, but also like pro-gay, like back and forth. So it was like, what the fuck is this
Right.
movie trying to say?
Right. Yeah. Or even like the weird, like, oh, she wants to sit on your face, bro. It's like, it's a middle-aged woman. Like, it's weird. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it was very weird. Josh, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm probably inclined to go whichever way you guys leaned with
It's your
this.
choice,
'cause
man. I mean, it's all
definitely-
individual. Also, don't pull on that too much. It's gonna make noise.
I know. Sorry. I don't know. I could go either way with this. I enjoyed it enough that I'm not necessarily inclined to burn it, but I also feel like it doesn't really belong in the library.
It
either.
seems like you.
I guess I
wanna
would
shelf
card it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's fine. It's everybody's up to their own choice.
Right.
It seems like you definitely enjoyed it more than both Grant and I, and that's fine.
Yeah, but by the end, I did.
Okay.
By the time it was over, I was like, okay, that was fun enough.
Speaking of fun enough, though, let's move on to the final movie of the movie 4-pack of Fire Bros for this month. Private Parts. Everybody, don't get too horny. I'm not talking about genitals. Talking about the Howard Stern biopic.
Yes.
It's based on a book, I think, right, Grant?
Yeah. Which also, like,
Of the same
book
name?
came out pretty early. Like, yeah, called
Okay.
Private Parts. I think that the book cover art and the movie cover art are like almost similar. I think it's like him instead of in front of like the Empire State Building, like mostly naked. And yeah, the book was like a best-selling book, and they were just like, you want to do a movie? And the crazy thing about Howard Stern's career is it's lasted for so long, and it started so long, and like the part of the movie where he is like a sort of a Jew fro and a mustache, he's like 30.
Really?
Yeah.
So he's like already pretty old.
I thought he was in college, they said.
Around that time he was in college, but it took him a long time to get his fucking career off the ground. So he was like in his 30s by the time he started getting any level of success, which is again where he has the Jew fro and the mustache. And then it's like he's still like on fucking Sirius XM and shit like that. So it's crazy to think that this came out in 1994, that he had already hit that level of popularity so long ago.
Yeah.
And that they could like still make a movie about his like the beginnings of his career that long ago, you know?
Yeah. Well,
And, you
this
mentioned
movie came out in
94.
This movie did?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I thought it was like 96 or 97.
That's what I thought too,
94.
yeah.
I think so, or at least the book came out in 94. I can fact check it real quick, but go ahead and say what you were going to say.
Grant, you suggest this movie to watch.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was interesting because, as broadcasters ourselves, I thought it was an interesting story.
Right.
It was obviously from a different time, but relatable in its own right. Like just the guy's trying to do his own thing, going paying his dues, having to kiss ass, all this other shitty stuff he's got to put up with.
The movie was 1997, but I think the book came out like 94.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I would say like the first half, I kind of didn't like it though. It felt very. I'm trying to think what I was thinking. I remember like thinking like it felt way too self-congratulatory for me for a while there, and I think it wasn't really until Robin came in where I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, and like I think it really started to pick up the pace.
And I think that's where it clicks, and where it's sort of like you can see him interact with other people, and that like he genuinely wanted to do it, like to get a rise out of Robin and to like get rises out of like the people that he was working with, as opposed to just doing it for his own sort of self-congratulatory sense of
it felt like the rest of the movie up until that point was asking us to come along with him, where it felt like they wanted us to be more sympathetic than we could have been, because I'm like, the guy's acting like a fucking asshole. It wasn't
also like Howard Stern is like a fucking asshole, or at least back then he was. So it was, I think, in character for him to be sort of up his own ass.
Yeah, and it felt like even the mere existence of the movie and the time it came out almost feels like it feels like they were like a little bit too premature on like, let's tell this guy's life story while he's like red hot popular, and it's just,
exactly.
Not looking back on
with a lot of
it wasn't like looking back on it. It felt very much like, I guess what I did feel was, again, when I know there's Robin and the other guy that plays himself, but everybody else in his life was played by like other actors and stuff, and I'm like, I guess it was starting to feel kind of cheesy. I'm like, because in my mind I was like thinking of like, my general opinion of biopics was like, yeah, they probably conflated this, and this is this didn't really happen. It just like, I you don't know how much of it to believe, and it's all hammed up.
It does, because he is like candid about his experience of shooting the movie and stuff like that, and I think he says that like certain things were sort of like bent a little bit, or like certain characters were sort of meshed together in certain experiences, but for the most part, I think it is like pretty much like, when he got in like a physical altercation with his with his boss, like when he got in a fight with his boss at one of the radio stations, like actually did happen. Like they were like pulling the phone away from each other and shit like that, and being like physically aggressive. Like some of that shit actually did happen, which is like amazing to sort of document.
And I believe it. It's just the fact that it is a biopic always makes me more cautious, just by nature of like how many have been completely embellished.
Right.
You want to say something, Josh?
This movie offended me. As a gay man,
thank you for bringing that up.
This movie was offensive.
There was like parts of the movie where he would do that. That was like, hell, like it felt like they were kind of wanting us to go along with him. Like, yeah, man, do that fucking homophobic voice, dude. Yeah, fuck gay people, man. Like that's what it kind of like, and like at a different time, whatever. But it was just like the movie was like not aware of like, I don't know, man, this is like offensive. Like,
this is a super not PC movie.
Well, yeah, and again, like his rise to fame is being a shock jock.
Right,
absolutely. It made complete sense.
Yeah,
it came across the movie was like was assuming we'd be way more on his side than I feel like most people would be. Where it was, I think
it was sort of like just bringing up the fact that it's like, yeah, this guy's rise to prominence was doing very offensive humor and stuff like that, but again, a little more from the side, because I know that, like, in later interviews with Howard Stern, especially recently, he'll be very open with, like, I was an asshole to this person. I wish that I wouldn't have been. Like, I have regrets for, like, some of the ways that I've acted and some of the stuff that I've done. And, like, at the end of the day, he was just trying to, like, connect with people and stuff like that. And, like he talks constantly about how like he started going to therapy and how like therapies helped him and stuff like that, and he's like a much more calm, rational person. But at the end of the day, I think, like, from what I've heard him say in interviews, is like a lot of the offensive stuff he would put out was to just like get a rise out of people, get people to laugh, get people to enjoy themselves and stuff like that. And I think he's sort of come to terms with that a little more. And I think that the point of this movie and him writing this book and giving people like sort of a peer into his life and like, you know, creating this movie out of that book is to be like, hey, you know, like I am this guy that's like this egotistical, narcissistic asshole, but also like I do just want attention and, you know, sort of stuff. And it's coming from like a very, I think, humanistic place, which I think is an interesting like through line of trying to understand like who he is as a person and why he would make something like this, because it is like weirdly touching in certain parts, you know, too.
Yeah, I would say so. I just feel like it didn't 100% read exactly how it seeed like they wanted it to be at some points, but overall, like I know that was like, you know, the underlying theme mostly. But it's an interesting story. Like you said, a lot of there's some weird, crazy stuff that happened in his career that, you know, I would like to believe did happen. I do believe probably happened.
I think most of it, or if there were embellishments, it was like just to like shorten for movie length, but it sounded like most things did. So. I
mean, you know, and it is what it is, but I felt, you know, again, as like someone who is a broadcaster, I thought it was interesting. You know, I thought it was, you know, because I mean, for my own personal experience, Thought Cops is not the first thing I've worked on. It probably won't be the last thing I work on, but like just, you know, there has been a lot of like on a road to success. Like there's so much of bashing your head into a wall, and just like, you know, then you got your relationship issues and your personal life, and it's just like all that's kind of happening at the same time, and it's like very difficult. And this movie was like didn't shy away from that stuff. It was like, yeah, damn, you know, it's just people don't always see the whole picture, and it was it was interesting. And then like just there's a lot of, you know, small successes that you think you have, like even in my own life there's just all this, like sometimes I think back on certain stuff I forget about that even happened, like wasting my time at these stupid fucking nothing events or jobs where I'm like hoping this would be something that would help me make my fucking college degree worth something, and just like leaving and being like depressed and being like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. And that kind of stuff happened over and over and over. And, you know, this movie again captures that very well.
I was really entertained by the movie, and I came away liking the movie a lot. But I feel like I'm similar to you in that I came away from it not having a whole lot of respect for Howard Stern, at least the version of Howard Stern that made this movie.
Yeah.
I think like you were saying, Grant, I also read after I did like some reading up on like stuff he's said more recently, and like you were talking about how he started going to therapy a bunch and like has kind of expressed a lot of regrets for ways he treated people in his life.
Right.
And a lot of that's more recent.
Yeah,
At the time he made this movie, I kind of get the sense that he was
definitely
in
was
denial
not.
about some of that stuff.
Absolutely. I don't think that it was like trying to portray a picture, but I do think that maybe it's not the fully fleshed out version of like the 60-year-old Howard Stern we have now. That
and again would have benefited from making the movie now as opposed to like then.
But it's still sort of cool that it's like
it
he
maybe
got to
wouldn't
play
have
himself.
been as entertaining.
True. Yeah,
if that was the case. I said it maybe wouldn't have been as entertaining if that was the case, though. There was a certain energy to this movie that's kind of informed by what I think I'm talking about.
Yeah,
that made it more enjoyable.
And the time it came out too, I think, is important.
I came away with very mixed feelings about Stern, not just as a person, but also as a comedian. Like, there were things that I really enjoyed about his approach to being like a shock jock and the very like abrasive and confrontational way he basically like went to war with the people who tried to stop him from doing the things that he was trying to do. Like I had respect for like the principle behind what he was doing. I didn't necessarily find every like comedy bit that he was doing as part of that to be super funny.
Agreed. I'm right there with you, Josh.
Right. And I do think that a lot of it is just that comedy sometimes just ages poorly too. You know, and that they are digging up bits that are from like the late 80s, early 90s and stuff like that. And they're filming it in 1997. It's already probably a little aged at 1997, but then we watch it in 2020 and it's like, yeah, this isn't, where he's holding the megaphone up to the microphone and he's like, kill the white man, kill him, kill the white man. And it's like, in 1985.
I was kind of cringing the way the other people in the radio booth were cringing at
but
him
also
doing that.
like if it's 1985.
But it felt like they were like, man, we were like, yeah, we're supposed to be on his side.
Yeah.
But to your point, though,
Right.
what frustrated me, and this is not his fault, is there are plenty of people who still act like that and do think that's very funny and cool to do. Certain people, never mind. I think some people may have taken the wrong message from this movie.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, I think the whole point of like why he was doing some of these bits was because he was just like lashing out at people again that like were sort of trying to control him. So he was just like, hey, you're going to tell me to do this. I'm going to go as far out of my way. Like, I don't even care about the audience. I care about you, the producer, fucking hating me. And like, I will do everything to sink the ship that you're on. And like, I will come out the other end of it. And again, like, I know Howard Stern, like as a persona, has always come off as like very egotistical, narcissistic. Like he hams up his own, he called himself the king of all media, et cetera, et cetera. But like, I do think that there's like a level of truth to that too, where you're talking about how like he is sort of unsavory. Like, I think that that's also true. Like that he's not a fully sympathetic character throughout the entire movie. He is like a prick, but he's just like sort of a prick that like you're a little more on his side going through some of this stuff than some of the pricks that he's like working under and stuff like that too, Yeah,
and I did genuinely enjoy some of the comedy bits that he does in the movie. Like some of it I did actually find funny. Even some of the stuff that I cringed at, I was like, that's still like, I can't deny that even though that's offensive, it's pretty funny. But I think the stuff that aged the worst is probably like the stuff involving his wife in the movie, because you get like every time his wife in the movie, who is played by someone other than his real wife,
right.
Anytime she expresses like annoyance or anxiety about something he's doing, like he acknowledges it, but then like the way he responds to it every time is kind of like, hey, this is fine. I'm just trying to like be funny. And she like eventually like comes around to like, well, I don't love it, but like you're just doing what you're doing. Like, I guess it's fine. Whereas like they're divorced now, and they definitely like the relation, like the way he plays it off in this movie of her like being sort of perturbed by it. But
I didn't know they were divorced in real life.
He like plays it off as like her being sort of annoyed, but it being okay in general. I don't think it was ever really okay.
Well, but I mean, there is. I don't think that's not to say though that there aren't ups and downs, and that for the sake of the trajectory of the movie to be like, hey, there's tensions, but at the end of the day, it all works out. This is the 90s. Believe it doesn't matter. I get divorced a little bit later, but like whatever. We have to sort of put a bow on it. But again, sort of like what Kevin said, it doesn't shy away from the fact that like this stuff does happen, and that like he did have marital problems and stuff like that, and like, at the very least, they didn't shy away from like some of the gravity of it, in the same way that a lot of other biopics just sort of gloss over it. I mean, it did feel like, hey, this is all of the shit that I had to deal with. And like, I don't really feel like I have to hide it or editorialize it. It just sort of is what it is,
I appreciate that element of it for sure. I think it just bothered me how he portrayed himself as being like reasonable in all of those situations, pretty much. Like there were some points where he was like, yeah, I kind of fucked up here. But like, even in like the interactions with his wife, the way that they would generally go is him being like, her being upset and him just being like, no, listen, like I meant it like this, and this is why I did this. And her eventually kind of coming around to it. Instead of what would have been more realistic of like him taking full responsibility for fucking up, or things just not resolving, but it kind of always resolves in his favor. which I don't think was.
Which, I mean,
I don't think that part of it was probably very honest.
It could have been honest though, and maybe that could have been where the divorce happened, because maybe everything did always end up in his favor, and that just after a while. I mean, it's hard to say without delving into.
He wasn't very self-aware about it, I think.
Sequel.
At the time.
Write more. He did write more books. I don't think that any more movies came out or whatever, but
he's an interesting guy, you know, and I think he's a good interviewer and he's a good broadcaster.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
and I think that's what like drew me to liking this movie so much, was it's just like, at the very least, it's like you do get to see the insight again from the horse's mouth, you know, to be like, hey, this is me telling my story. Like, it's as close as I can get it to real life or whatever, but like this is it. What do you think, sort of thing. And I do appreciate that level of just like, you know, that honesty I feel like doesn't come through in a lot of similar biopics, you know, that it's like,
yeah, because he was part of it. It's like, I know a lot of other ones, like everybody's played by other actors and stuff. Right. You know, they could be pretty hokey for the most part, which I feel like this was a little bit, but you know, it wasn't.
I feel like there was sort of a charm to its hokiness too, that it was sort of like a self-aware level of hokiness, you know?
Definitely. I also really liked Robin, by the way, like you said.
Yeah.
I think she was my favorite part of the movie. She plays herself, and I didn't really know anything about her, and
I didn't either,
definitely came to really appreciate her part in their bits and stuff like that.
And even, I mean, to this day, she's still his sidekick, and he's like, yeah, I won't do the show without her. Like, if she had like a cancer scare a while ago, and he's like, if she like, you know, kicks the can or anything, like, I'm done being a radio broadcaster. Like, I don't want to do this job, which is like, yeah, I mean, it's important to like have that level of, you know, you can sort of, you know, have people to bounce ideas off of, engage things and stuff like that, to like, you know, that energy in the room is what created the show that people resonated themselves to, or however you want to say that.
So I would say I would put it on the shelf, the cart, whatever it is. I wouldn't burn it, but I wouldn't put it in the library personally.
It goes in the library for me. I liked it.
I'd library it, but I'd probably like a lower shelf.
Yeah. I was like, I'm like, it would be either a low shelf or a cart. I mean, I don't know.
I'd say middle shelf for me. Like, again, it's not like a complete like blow away my paradigm or whatever, but it's like I enjoyed watching it. There was enjoyable parts. I like learned something from it.
I'll put it on the bottom shelf. I'm not going to put it in the cart. I enjoyed it enough. And like I said, the first half of the movie or whatever, I was kind of like, but then surprisingly won me over more. So
I think it's fun. Like watching him like push Paul Giamatti, I think was a great scene.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah. And then his thing at the end came back to him. But yeah, so well, that about wraps up this episode of Fire Bros. Yes. It's been a long day. We fucking think about the Snyder Cut again. I got mad.
Oh man.
God. Oh, you want to talk about the Snyder Cut again?
No. This was just, you know, that I don't want to hear anyone talk about the Snyder Cut again.
Yeah.
Again, we're the final.
It's burned. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. That's it.
For the final word, you know, we were the last content creators. Want everybody else to get their reviews in first before we could burn it.
No one else can ever see it.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's it. That's the
You're
end.
Welcome.
You just listen to this episode. Sorry. You don't have to see it. So
yeah.
No really reason to go seek it out.
And we're correct on our assessment. So,
and everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for donating over at Patreon. It means a lot, helps us out a lot, and it helps the show continue to move forward and continue to be what it is and continue to grow. We'll be doing another one of these hopefully soon. And I'm glad we're more on a schedule again. I know we were a little off for a while, so I was happy that we're able to pump another one of these out, fairly soon after the last one and move forward at the same schedule. So thank you everybody for your love and support and your listenership.
Indeed.
Mind if I plug my show real quick?
Go for it.
I still do this show Untwisted, where we talk about this really weird Australian kids show from the 90s. It's me, one of my American friends, and 2 Australian friends, and it's a lot of fun. It's a weird show, and we have a lot of fun with it, and I think it's fun. Check it out.
And they kind of introduce you to this strange show, and you guys kind of
Yeah. Yeah, it's very strange. It's got a lot of weird shit that happens in it that you I don't think would happen in an American show, but it's also kind of good. I actually enjoy it somewhat as well.
Interesting.
Fascinating. I'm burnt after the fucking Snyder Cut and then recording this for 2 hours.
Yeah, you gotta take the train home too. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you, space firefighter, I guess.
Sure.
Whatever. All right, and cut.